Hi everyone, Rob Sutherland here from Good Dirt Clay Studio, and I'm going to do a demonstration for you today on a drop-rimmed bowl. It's something that Warren McKenzie made famous, and I put an extra little twist on it at the end to give it just a little extra level of fancy. This is about a 2-pound ball of clay, and I'm going to go through the steps. I'm going to try to explain everything as best I can. Obviously, if I've forgotten anything or if anything I say is unclear, leave a comment or email us, and I'll be happy to clarify. All right, here goes. I am working on a bat just because I'm going to be altering the rim, and I'd rather not have to try to pick it up directly, even though it's just a 2-pound ball. I'm going to center as I always would, getting myself close to the wheel, anchoring my arms down to the splash pan, and making sure it's really accurate to begin with. Releasing the pressure gradually. I'm going to open this down to leave about a ½ an inch in the bottom so that I have plenty of room to trim a nice foot. That really finishes off this form nicely. So I will stop early and dry out the inside and check that depth with my needle tool. And I have about a ½ an inch. It's my lucky day. Now, this is where bowls differ from cylinder forms. I'm going to open on a curve using my hands flat and even slightly bent backwards. So I create a nice sort of hemispherical bottom. It doesn't have a conical opening in there at all. And hopefully there's no break in the line between the middle and the rim. Now I'm going to pull this up on a diagonal and keep it basically like a rice bowl shape. And you'll see that as I pull on a bowl form, instead of pulling over here at 3 o'clock and raising straight up, I'm going to bring my hands back into my body a little bit. So if I'm looking at this as a clock face, I'm pulling at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. And that puts my left hand radial to the circle. My tips of my fingers are kind of in the middle, and I'll pull up. And that just gives me a smoother, nicer curve on the inside. So here's the first pull. I'm going to dig in with my outside hand. I'm going to lift this clay, compressing it upward, holding still at the rim and slowly releasing. I'm going to come in for a second pull, get a little bit more height on it. Drawing that up and out. Now I'm going to be taking this rim and flipping it over so it hangs upside down, and that'll mean the point where it folds is the new rim. And so because it's going to be hanging upside down, I want to go ahead and take my chamois, even though I'm not done, and finish this edge a little bit. And looking at this, I've got kind of my conical shape. I've got a fairly smooth interior, but I can clean that up when I'm done folding the rim. So now, if you're familiar with bowls, here's where it gets tricky and where we're doing something kind of new. So I'm going to, without being rude, use my middle finger up underneath the rim, and I'm going to anchor my arm down so it's in my body, and I'm keeping it the same height as the wheel goes around. And that's going to provide kind of the pivot point where I'm going to fold over with my left hand. So my left hand is going to come and start folding the clay outward to begin with. When I get to horizontal, you would think it would just collapse, and it will if I don't do anything about it. But now I'm going to switch hands. So my left hand is going to go inside, and my right hand is going to come up on top of the rim. I want to put slight pressure outward so that it will fold and kind of crease. So I'm going to put my hand here, and I'm just going to fold it down like that. Now I don't want to go too far because I can't actually push this rim inward. That would be a collaring move. So if I just push, I'm going to just distort everything. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stretch my bowl out now so that this folded part moves slightly farther out, and my rim will hang more like a little curtain. So I'm going to switch. I like to use a rib to do that stretching out from the inside. You can do it with your fingers, but the rib provides a fairer curve. So I'm going to go in there and start in the center and work my way up and just stretch that. I'm going to kind of keep bringing this rim outward. So now that skirt is hanging more straight down. And now, since that's the new rim of the bowl, I'm actually going to take the chamois and kind of finish that edge. I'm going to finish up with kind of cleaning up the curve. I got a little carried away with my pressing out, and I've created a little bit of a swoop-de-doo in the line. So I'm going to come up under here and just kind of clean this up. That's nicer. So now I've got this kind of open bowl shape with this strange skirt around the edge. I'm going to crisp up that line with my rib on the outside too. I'm not pressing, I'm just kind of cleaning it up. And defining the lip a little bit better. I'm going to come back one more time just for good measure with the chamois and make sure I like the way that looks. And I'm kind of a sucker for a swirl on the inside of my bowl, just real subtle, nothing too, it's nothing that's going to interrupt the flow of my spoon as I'm eating or something, but I'm just going to put a little bit of a swoop in there. Just moved kind of quickly from the bottom to the top as the wheel is moving more slowly. And that one's really subtle. It probably won't even show up through glaze, but it makes me happy anyway. All right, so now to take this one step a little bit further, I'm going to, first of all, just scrape out a little bit of goop from the edge so that my wire tool can run under there a little bit easier. And I bumped it with my finger, so I'm going to touch it up one more time. All right, now I'm going to take my chamois and I'm going to press inward at 5 different points around the rim. So instead of it just looking like a bowl with a dropped rim, it's going to kind of look like a 5-petaled flower, and that drop rim is really going to accentuate that alteration. And I really like the way it looks when you put those two techniques connected together into one. So here's the secret. I learned this from Min Soo Yu. You take your chamois and you basically wrap it over the edge of the rim, and it cushions it just a little bit. I'm going to kind of fold it down and smear it down so it sticks. And this is going to allow me to indent the rim without the edge of the rim actually or the edge of the rib rather, cutting into the clay. So I'm going to make my first point directly on top of a bat pinhole, because that is just a good reference point so that I can make everything symmetrical. I'm going to take 2 fingers, put them on the inside of the bowl, and I'm going to kind of go between them with my rib like that. So I'm going to set up here and press and kind of kink it inward. I'm going to turn around so you can kind of see how that looks. I'm always tempted after I do the first one just to leave it with one. It really looks interesting with just one dent like that, but I'm going to go ahead and give this one 5. So what I'm going to do is eyeball, as if I were drawing a star, giving somebody a gold star for their good work. I'm going to eyeball what that looks like. And so I'm going to make the next one. I'll make little dots with my fingers on the rim so I can see where I want to put those. So that's that. Now I'm going to turn the wheel so I'm working in the same kind of position. So I'm here, pressing in and kind of kinking it. And I'm going to make the next one over there where I've got my little wet fingerprint. And now I'm going to split these 2 larger shapes. So I've got 3, and the bigger ones are going to get divided in half. And that's a really good way to make a 5-way symmetry. If you get this initial sort of spread from the center across from your first mark correct, it all falls into place. It's the same technique I use for subdividing into 7. But just because of the sort of botanical reference to maybe a cherry blossom or a apple blossom, I always like 5 on these altered bowls. And that's it. Now, one good advantage of doing 5-way symmetry is your eye doesn't pick out your error quite as badly as if you do 4-way or 6-way, something where you can see straight across. My initial estimate was a little bit too wide. And so, yeah, it's not a perfect symmetrical flower, but flowers aren't perfectly symmetrical either. So I'm gonna just stick with that nature theme. Now, here's where I'm happy that I didn't do it straight on the wheel head, because when you have that drop rim, it's hard to get your hands underneath to lift it up. It's not impossible, but I've got a stack of bats sitting here, so I'm gonna take advantage of it. All that's left to do is wire this guy off, and I'm gonna use one of my homemade twisted wire tools, spin the wheel slowly as it goes under, and set that aside to dry to leather hard. When I go to trim it, I'll probably trim this on a foam bat, because these little points stick up slightly proud of the rim. And if I just do it straight on the wheel head, they're gonna get dented and kind of smushed flat. And I like them to look slightly thinned out and just like they look right now. So I don't wanna change that at all. Any little imperfections, definitely wait until leather hard to mess with them. Sometimes the place where your chamois goes in looks a little goobery, but at leather hard, you can take your thumb and kind of gently smooth that out, and it's going to look so much better if you wait instead of messing with it now. So that's everything for my drop rimmed bowl with 5-way symmetrical petals. I'm going to clean my hands, and then I'm going to pick up the phone and give you a final view of it up close. Don't hesitate to reach out to me via comments or email if you have questions on how to do this. And thanks so much for watching. All right. Here's a close-up. I'll spin it slowly so you can see how that rim looks. I'm going to move up overhead and see how that alteration works with the form. Thanks again.